Anyway, even if umependa kufanya mazi, angalia jirani yako mwambie umeiva. Najua mnakula food lakini mwambie umeiva. Bana, alafu angalia jirani mwingine mwambie umeiva zaidi. Maybe wa kwanza kuamini, si ndio? Inaonekana budako ni nini? Inaonekana budako ni chef, So wamekaa peke yao, sijui apply namna gani. Jiambie tu umeiva, si ndio? Alafu affirm tena mazi umeiva zaidi. Alright, so we're just about to get into this session where we're talking about modern day evangelism. But before that, wacha tuanze na icebreaker, si ndio? Let me get five volunteers. 5 volunteers. All us wadishi saa hizi. 3 ladies, 1 jamaa, 2 jamas. 3 ladies, 2 jamas. Asante. So I have the 2 guys here. Now let's get 3 ladies. Ati, kujeni kwa stage. Kujeni kwa stage na mimi bana. I need another lady, please. Ati nani? Melody kamu. Oh, good. We have 2. Yeah, I need 1 more lady, tafadhali. 1 more lady. Kuja. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so now spread out vizuri mazee. Relax. Hakuna tension, si ndio? Yeah. Simameni kwa line, foleni, pangeni hapa hivi foleni vizuri. Asante. Ati kwa lami, this is good. Now, this is a wonderful audience right here, right? No, come on. This is a wonderful audience right here, right? Very attentive, sindio? Now, we're going to play a game together, yeah? Now, on my hand, I have cards. These cards are from a board game. It's a new board game kutoka kwa Ernest Wamboy. Wasongape wameenda mazee session ya Ernest pale hivyo. Ilikuwa moto, sindio? Hey, mazee Ernest. Anatupatia pressure bana. Imekuwa poa sana. Now, so Ernest has a brand new game he's developed inaitwa Logos. And basically, it's a Bible board game. Sawa? It's a Bible board game. Now, what's going to happen is on this card, like now this card here, it has words. Now your job is to describe that word to these guys right here. And the person who gets most words, the person who gets this audience to respond correctly to those words. Basically, what word that is, that person is the winner today. Sawa? Tuko sawa? Shwari? Shambamba? Aya. Atuwekelea do. Aya, sawa. So, guys, you ready? Nyime understand, sindio? So they're going to describe the word to you. You cannot say it starts with the letter. Kuna msele fanya hivyo jana. Sindio? So you just have to be creative, describe that word. You only have 30 seconds to describe as many words as possible and get this audience to get your word right. So I'm just going to get my timer right here. So it's an icebreaker. You guys are attentive to this, sindio? Aya, hiyo clock imeanza kwa 0? Yes. Iko sawa? Iko sawa. Aya, wewe ndiye msao wa kwanza hapa hivi. So, unanipa kadi. Nakupatia kadi. Lakini kwanza shikilia microphone. Hiyo microphone yako. Aya, starting now. Chukua kadi ni yako pia.
So any word, yeah?
Bro, kimbia nayo. Time yako inaenda. Inaenda but 10 seconds gone.
Moses. Nipe mtoto. Nani? No hiyo Hana, twende kazi. He's a lion of the tribe of
Time yako imeisha. Amejaribu, si ndio? In fact, I want to do something that hypes you amefanya hapa hivi. So the rest of the guys, they have to act it out even as they describe it. Sawa?
Awesome.
Even better, maze. Aya, iko sawa tu. It makes it even better. Alright, just hold it that way first. Jamie, uko tayari? In 3, 2, 1, go.
Let my people go. Nani alikuwa amewashikilia? Nani alikuwa amewashikilia? Yes. The land of milk and honey. I don't know. I do not speak. What is that person anaitwa? Yes, mute.
Time. Hey, that's good bana. This is your card. So Jamie amepata 3, si ndio? Aya basi poa. Uko sawa, umejishika tama uko sawa eh? What's your name? Donnell.
Yeah.
Sawa, Donnell come mbele na mimi. Uko tayari? I'm going to reset this. Uko tayari?
Yeah.
All right, in 3, 2, 1, twende kazi.
It is a Bible. It is a... No. Thank you, Old Testament. It is the body that we believe in. Thank you, thank you. It is a place where people used to go and offer sacrifice. No, something of somethings. Thank you.
Hiyo mwisho tutahesabu lakini umejaribu bana, si ndio? Haya. Alafu what's your name?
Esther.
Esther. Sawa. Esther, the microphone is yours. So I'm going to reset this. Yani, just try and get through as many words as possible, yeah? Okay. In 3, 2, 1, twende.
A side chick, those days. We offer, what we offer, the sleeping with many people. You commit? A disciple of Jesus. No.
Hey, Esther amefanya poa, si ndio? A side chick in the Bible alikuwa anaitwa nini? Hey. Kidimeni Jazzy ameshikanisha vipoa mazi ati ni side chick. Hivyo iko sawa kabisa mazi haya. Melody.
Yes.
Haya, so you know the drill, si ndio?
Yes.
Are you ready?
No. Yes.
Uko na mafans hapa hivi. In 3, 2, 1, go.
David's son died on a tree, something with a donkey. Thank you. One of the three, Father, Son, and there's tiny birds, the really tiny words. No, it was a thing. No, yes, thank you. The Aaron got all their gold and made what? Yes. Some trust in. Thank you.
Hey,
Faith is.
Time. Wow. I think it's obvious nani ameshinda hii, si ndio? Ati? She has no, ilikuwa tu sawa tu, man. Anyway, guys, let's give it up for Melody. Melody ndiye ameshinda hii, si ndio? Good stuff, Melody. Great job, Maze. Yani, the gift that you get today is all the accolades these wonderful people will give you, si ndio? So, guys, let's appreciate it tafadhali, si ndio? Karibuni sana, Maze. Thank you, guys. Niseni na kadi. Asante sana. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, CEO, Maze. Asante sana. Anyway, guys, it's really nice to see you, and thank you so much for coming for this session. Tulikuwa na time poa sana Maze jana, and I hope that pia leo itakuwa ni kali, si ndio? So, we're going to talk about modern day evangelism, sio? Modern day evangelism. And basically, one of the things we're going to try and ask ourselves is, what is a disruptive kind of modern day evangelism can we use today, si ndio? Kwa sababu times zimebadilika, sio? I can tell you for sure, when Aska started when I became a Christian, that was in 99, and I started doing outreach in the year 2000 when Kubamba started. There are many things that we used to do back then that we can't do today, si ndio? Life may change. That's in a span of 20 years, bana. A whole new generation has been born. A kid who was born in 2000 is 23 years old now. Man, that's kind of crazy, bana, si ndio? I am old. Lakini iko sawa tu. Anyway, but first, when I was thinking about this session yesterday, and thinking about, how I can be able to share with you, the first thing I want to do is to be able to affirm you kwanza. Si ndio? I want to affirm the guys who are in youth ministry. Ina itakuwa ile ministry ya kujitolea. Si ndio? Kujitafutia, kujisort, jijue, jifahamu. Kwa sababu it's one of the most looked down ministries, especially in the church, unfortunately. True or false? Mi ujua mazina, hii trend haijabadilika. When I used to serve directly in the church, in the youth ministry, if there was a budget that used to be slashed every year, faithfully, ilikuwa ni gani? Youth ministry bana. Your speakers could be dying, baze, all you can hear ni Twitter peke yake. lakini haitabadilishwa. Or you won't get a new one. The thing utapata itakuwa ni hand me down, si ndio? Kama hii speaker itolewe hapa hivi alafu wasema acha tupeleke iko youth ministry alafu hapa hivi kwa main service weke speakers mpya, si ndio? It's the truth bana. Alafu mazee sasa ukiongezea missions hapo. Mission, wasiwenda missions outside siku hizi with the funding of the church. Although yesterday there was one church walisema mazee kwa the youth ministry waliongezewa budget from 1 million to 2 million shillings. You know, but you know, we serve a very critical audience, but yet our ministry is not critical. Unfortunately, man, you know. Kama ni missions mazee kifika ni budget ingine ya kukatwa mnaambwe now amwezi enda missions zaidi. Si ndio missions inakatwa ndio kwa sababu church, we want to build the church. We want to expand the church. Tunataka kuongeza mawe. Lakini au sahau mazee, hii church haiwezi jaa kama wase hawendi nje, si ndio? Unfortunately, man. So, I want to affirm you guys and say you are doing an amazing work for this generation. And your efforts or your sacrifice are not in vain. God sees what you're doing. God knows what you're doing. And I cannot wait to see what's going to come out of your life. I pray that the space that you're in right now as well, youth ministry, kuwa si stepping stone, ya kwenda kuwa mazee pasi, you know, to become the lead pastor. Najua si wengine na kuwa mazee time tu ya kushikilia momentarily. All they're looking at ni, ile time wataenda kuchukua job ya pasi. But, you know, in this space, during this advanced conference, mko na wasi wengine wa fresh sana, guys who've been serving in youth ministry for a long time. They never desired even to be in that space where they end up being the lead pastors. But they found themselves there. But if you have conversations with them even today, their hearts burn and bleed for the young people. And one of those guys is Pastor Nick Korir. Excuse me, Reverend. Yeye ndiye tukaribisha hapa hivi mazee Nairobi Chapel, si ndio? So, but first for you guys, let's appreciate, man. Jipigeni makofi kwa sababu sina makofi nafyo kuwapigia. Kuwagotea kuambia mazee asanteni kwa kazi nzuri. Now, again, as we thought about Hijobia Youth Ministry and of course evangelism today, I was like, we just can't keep calling it evangelism, si ndio? I want you guys to consider yourselves in a different light. Watetezi wa kizazi kipya. Ati watetezi wa kizazi kipya. I'm going to ask you guys a question. Watetezi inamaanisha nini kwa Kiswahili? Kwa Kiingereza, si kwa Kiswahili. Ati? Advocates, si ndio? Advocates of the new generation. Please help me with the slide, tafadhali. Advocates of this new generation. A generation that's so different, A generation that's so different from what guys have known in the past. That within the last 10 years, I have been in ministry for a while. In the last 10 years, there's something that has shifted. There's a cultural shift that has happened, and that's what I'm saying. We can't do ministry the same way we used to do it 10 years ago. In fact, I almost want to say, you can't do ministry as we did ministry 6 years ago. In 2017, I can guarantee you guys that something changed, including the gospel music industry as we know it. Something shifted. Ask all the DJs who go to play for students in the high schools. Very few play brand new music. Aucheza ngoma za kutoka 2017 kurudi nyuma. Something has shifted. You guys are the advocates of this new generation. And I'm so happy to see you guys here because I'm like, man, I know for sure that the young people are in safe hands. Kwa sababu the conversations we're going to have here, hopefully mazini vitu zitaenda ku change and to transform the youth ministry as we know. Now, the first question I'm going to ask us, and I want us to discuss here, nisi mi pekee nitakuwa nikiongea hapa hivi. If we can turn to your neighbor, let's ask ourselves, any disruptive modes of ministry, disruptive modes of youth ministry umecheki in this new generation. Ni gani hiyo unaweza sema mazi umecheki? You know that ministry you look at alafu unasema, man, those guys are doing something that's amazing. I want to be able to do what those guys are doing. A disruptive ministry. Na kama unafikiria kuhusu disruption, maybe a good example would be kama vile Uber iliingia ikabadilisha stories za mataxis. Mnanipata? Kama vile Airbnb iliingia ikabadilisha stories za mahoteli. So what kind of ministries have you seen that you're like, this is actually a disruptive ministry. They're doing something different. something that's relevant, something that you're like, oh man, finally. Kuna wase wana connect na hii generation young.
Okay, my name is Nancy. One of the ministry or something that our church does is that I'm a member of Nairobi Chapel here. Yeah. So every year they partner with Kubamba and some Norwegian church, whereby they choose a county, and then in the month of February, in like a span of 2 weeks, they go and preach the gospel.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Jamlipa, by the way. Yeah?
My name is Abhishag. I'm speaking on behalf of my friends on YouTube Mekana, or what we've discussed. Yeah. Two groups have come up. One is the Truth Movement. We've agreed on the beat that they're really radical. They do the music, the dancing, the everything, but what is still outstanding is the beat that they do not deviate from the word.
Where are they based?
Truth Movement. No, it's in Kenya.
Okay.
Mr. T.
Mr. T.
Yes, and then two, Kubamba. The K crew, the fellowships, the way they do the things, it's just outstanding, and they really connect with people, which is amazing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. T and the guys are doing an amazing job, Indio. The Truth Movement. Hi, Sylvia.
Hi. So two things. One, I don't know who they are, but they're amazing people. Street worship somewhere at Kencom in the evening. Yes, I don't know who they are, but they're amazing people. Oh, street worship, yes, street worship. And then two, actually, I'll just plug my organization, the Journey University Ministries, ICC. So I've seen how we've been consistent over 10 to 15 years in the universities. We have been doing life and discipling university students.
That's what's up, Bana. Thank you very much. And of course, a big shout out to the Journey. The Journey have been working in the universities for a while. So do you have one more to share? Okay. No, just your name. I love which ministry you guys have identified. That's very disruptive.
Hi, everyone. It is obvious, like right now, NAYNET, like how it is gathering everyone here to like, especially the youth, we share ideas and Makofia NAYNET, so furtherly. And yeah, also I'm going to tell my organization, Youth for Christ. We've been going to schools and Makofi. Yeah, so Youth for Christ, we basically go to high schools and universities. We rally people to like verge for Christ. My name is Ivy. Thank you.
And a big shout out to Kenya Youth for Christ and Pure Youth for Christ. You have one more. Okay, Sawa.
My name is Lanya. I just want to echo what she has said about going to schools, but we do it in a different way. We have friends in other countries, so we do exchange programs. So before we go to the schools, we invite our friends and we give them notice that we'll be coming with our friends. So we interrupt their learning session, not really to interrupt on a serious note, but we request that they grant us permission so that we can get in, evangelize, and leave. So that leaves a mark in their hearts. So the next time we say we are coming or we are doing a youth conference or a church, students' assembly, they will always come. God bless.
Which ministry is that?
I'm pastoring around Greater Grace Church. We are on Baricho Road.
Is that the same ministry you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, Sawa. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, let's dive into this. Indio. And first, a big shout out to all the ministries who are out here who are doing amazing work. Now, I want to give us some statistics up, just to help us now dive a little bit into this thing and why. I want you guys to consider yourselves as watetezi wa kizazi kipya. Sindio, the advocates of this new generation. When Ernest was speaking, and he was talking about, sexuality earlier, one of the things that he highlighted and how the LGBTQ and all these guys in this world are trying to push their work is through what? Advocacy. Sindio? Sasa zile sisi tumelala mazee kwa church. Kuna wase dunia mazee wanafanya job huku hivi chini ya maji. Guys are just working hard and pushing things forward, pushing the agenda before we realize change has happened in our country. They might not necessarily be shouting from the rooftops, but these guys are working hard. The other thing that Ernest said is that scripture from Philippians chapter 4. It's Ephesians, chapter 6, where he talked about that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, sindio? but against principalities and powers. And he started breaking it down from the Greek language. And I won't even try and mention those words in Greek because sijazishika. But basically alikuwa anasema, hawa wase wanakuwa wamejipanga yani, so well yani, it's like it's in ranks. By the time unamalizana na wase kuna wase wengine wamekungoja. By the time unamalizana na wase kuna wase wengine wamekungoja. By the time unamalizana na wase watatu kuna group nyingine yani bado imekutegea. That the world systems are so set up and so well established that unfortunately for us as a church, even though we're supposed to be the most woke and the most, yani we say who are supposed to be the most vibrant, we're so timid or we're so humble to our own detriment. I want to share with you guys some statistics, and I do hope, yani, that by the time we finish this time together, that we'll live with a better understanding, or we will live fired up to go out and start standing out for our generation. Now, Africa's population, Africa's population right now stands at 1.3 billion people. 1.3 billion people in Africa. And Africa's population is growing the fastest in the world. Out of these 1.3 billion people, the rule of thumb inasema that 70% are below the age of 30. That's 910 million people are below the age of 30. Do you see why your ministry is so important? Let me break it down even further, even though that statistics jiongeza hapo hivyo. In Kenya, it say that 60% of the population is below the age of 25. 60% is below the age of 25. So if you're not reaching out to this generation right here, our churches are going to die. Our effectiveness in ministry is going to die. Africa will never realize its full potential. Because our work is so key, bana. It's so important, yani, that God knew in his perfect time that this is the right time for us to be alive. So if you ever sat down and you wondered, Mazi, God, what's the agenda ahead for me? What numbers are there that can be able to inform me? 910 million young people. Let me give you guys another statistic. It says that in Kenya is a Christian nation, sindio? That's what they say. 80% of Kenya are Christians, 10% are Muslims, and then 10% other religions, including African traditional religion. But 80% consider themselves to be Christian. Now my question is, do you think 80% of the population in Kenya goes to church? No, sindio? Do you think if even the population that's going to church today, do you think 70% of the population currently going to church is below the age of 30? I'm going to ask you a question. What percent do you think goes to church in Nairobi today? Usiogope. You don't have to overthink. Ati? 30% goes to church in Nairobi. Sawa. Anybody else? 30% going once? 40%. Tuko na 40% hapo hivyo mazi. 40% going once. Ati ngapi? Ngapi? 10? 10%. Okay, now we have a 10% bana. Sawa. 25%. Guys, a study that was done by Daystar University a couple of years ago shows that 16%, I didn't know slide tafadhali. 16% of Nairobi goes to church. 16% of Nairobi goes to church. If this percent was to increase to 25%, we don't have enough space to accommodate guys in church. And when we say 16%, this is at least 10 years. This is a research that was done at least 10 years ago. With COVID, those numbers have gone down. Now, to help us bring this thing to perspective, kwa sababu hapa vitu nasema ni watetezi wa kizazi kipya, nirudishe tu kwa hiyo slide tafadhali. This 16%, if we were to look at that as 100%, if this 16% is 100%, Do you think 70% of that population are young people going to church? Do you think? Guys, the answer is no. Because tuko kwa church saa hizi. Church hazijajaa wase wa young. No. And unfortunately, the one ministry that keeps getting affected is the youth ministry, is the missions department. How sad must it that only 16% of Nairobi goes to church in a country that says they identify with Christianity? But I think we're in a good place because something needs to change. Something needs to change. The world somehow has understood this thing. And that's why our churches are standing at 16%. And they're working hard. I pray, Maze, for us today, we'll be able to wake up and to realize that something needs to change in our world. Let's go to the next slide, tafadhali. Africa. That's 70% of the population that we're talking about. These are some of the issues they're dealing with. Hopelessness, corruption, tribalism, sexually transmitted diseases or infections. You know the crazy things are easy, Maze? In fact, let me pull up a bit. I've given you guys a statistic of the current population between the ages of 15 and 24 years. 10 million in Kenya today. Now, this young population in Kenya right now, the latest infections of HIV/AIDS that are happening in our country today, the highest of those infections are happening amongst adolescents. These kids are not afraid of getting STIs. What they're afraid of is getting pregnant. Hawaogopi maze kupata STD. Wanaogopa maze kupata ball. You know, for us guys, when we were growing up, AIDS was such a real thing, eh? As in, we got scared out of AIDS kwa sababu of the images we were shown. Unacheki msesa yako na full-blown AIDS, unasema maze, mbali na mimi. You look at that person, you're like, there's absolutely no way I want to be in that position. But these young guys, they don't have that image. Because the carriers of the virus are healthy young people. Wanakaa fiti maze, they look just like you and me. Some of them were born, some of these kids were born with HIV/AIDS. And they have medicine that they're taking. So by the time these kids are going to sleep around, our dream is that one of the partners could probably be carrying the disease. Poverty, crime, mental health. This is a big one, especially because of COVID. Ile kitu COVID ilifanyia watoi. This young generation is absolutely crazy. Drug and alcohol abuse. You could probably also put that hand in hand with mental health. Gender-based violence. When we go to high schools to engage with young people, these are issues that we've picked out. These are not out of the blue. Hizi ni issues mazi tumecollect na data tuko nayo ya watoi. And the other thing now is that these statistics reflect the same all over the continent of Africa. These issues are things that we need to embrace and know this is what our generation is dealing with. I pray that as we continue, we will see the reason again why we need to be passionate about these young people. If we're going to be effective with this audience, we need to think differently about how we do ministry. Hatuwezi fanya ministry vile tunakuwa tumefanya maze kama kawaida. I'm going to suggest an idea that God has allowed us to see over the last couple of years that we as a church cannot avoid in order for us to be relevant and to be impactful kwa wase wa young. And this is a 360-degree outreach. 360 degrees in terms of on air, online, and on ground. Inside in a slide. These are the places where the young people are gravitating towards. Kama kuna kitu ina-influence hii generation, it's any one of these three things. On air is radio and television. In Kenya and all over the world, the number one mode of communication is radio. Hands down. Easiest thing to reach, easiest thing to be able to communicate with people. The next one, that's easy for them to access without requiring to go online, is television. Now the thing is, the world has understood this space. We as a church have shied away from anything to do with on air. In fact, watu wengi watasema mazee TV, when you talk to people and ask them what's influencing, in fact, this is very interesting. When we ask parents, what's influencing your kids negatively? Do you know the one thing they're going to say, ni? Ni nini? Ni nini? Watasema ni media. TV inaharibu watoto wetu. The world understands it so well, bana. Mimi nimesubscribe kwa Netflix. Daily mimi upata email mpya inaniambia mazee, hey MOZ. Of course unaniiti MOZ. Lakini watasema, ikawa na show, MOZ, we've uploaded a new show for you, something that you might like. Because I watch Netflix, they know me so well, they'll recommend shows with things I like. Do you see where these guys are? Sindio? They won't recommend a TV show of something I have no liking for. When you subscribe to Twitter, when you log into Twitter or Instagram, what are the things they're going to ask you? What are your likes? What are your preferences? They know what they're doing. They want to make sure they're walking with you every single day. I wish as a church we were playing more in that space for media, where we had great content that the young people can be able to go and watch. So we stopped complaining. We stopped complaining tukisema mazee kuwa there's just bad content that's happening on television, but we have an alternative. Sindio? Sasa alternative ni gani sasa? How many TV shows can we mention that are good productions, excellent productions that can compete with Hollywood shows that Christians can say we are proud of this show? Ziko ngapi? There are so few, bana. So few. I think right now The Chosen probably ndio inasaidia kuwa hapo hivyo. We have such few content, and yet that thing is shaping the culture of the young people. Another piece hapo hivyo bado kwa on air, nitaongeza music. I'm a product of music, by the way. Before I was a believer, music ilini mold vile nitadunga, vile nitaongea, the way I treat women. So when I used to drop the F-bomb or use the B word and I'm talking to ladies, it was just an overflow from the music I was listening to. And then when I became a believer, I have listened to many sermons and I've forgotten as many sermons. But I've listened to gospel music, imebaki na mimi hadi leo. Imeni mold vipawa mazito to be the man that I am today. Is the power of that on-air piece. The next piece is online. We can't escape online because we know the power of TikTok right now. Hii generation pia, by the way, haiko hata kwa Facebook. Wameshahepa Facebook kwa sababu unajua wazazi wao wako kwa Facebook, si ndio? Wameingia kwa Facebook na anonymous. Yeah? So young kids hawako kwa Facebook, hawako kwa Twitter, Instagram wako lakini unahepa Instagram. Sasa hizo wanamekimbia wapi? TikTok. TikTok has taken the world by storm. Donald Trump tried to stop it in the US, haiku happen. Imepenya maze. That space is molding and shaping this young generation. If we're not playing in that forum, guys, we're missing out. And then last but not least, on ground. So we have on air, radio, television, the music. You have online, music bado iko hapo hivyo. Alafu finally kuna on ground. That basically, if you and I are not in the spaces where the young people are, tumewapoteza. Tumewapoteza kabisa. It's one thing for us to be on air, and they can watch those programs, or they can listen to us on radio. It's one thing for them to be able to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, wakicheki what's happening, Snapchat. But nothing beats this thing called on ground. Vile naweza kuja hapa hivi ni bona huu msee. Ni aje mzee?
Fiti sana.
Unaitwa nani?
Anto.
Anto mtani wapi?
Nakuru.
Nax maze. There's nothing that can beat one-on-one, a relationship. This is hands down the most effective. I can sit down with Anto. I may not know him, but we can sit down and bond. Nshajua ametoka Nax. Nitaendelea mimi nimwambie mimi nimegrow ya Kangemi. We start forming a relationship. Before long, mazina muuliza, mazi, what's happening in your life? Na pia ataweza kuniuliza, what's happening in my life? It allows me to be able to somehow positively impact his life. Nothing can beat this one-on-one. So imagine if we embraced that 360-degree angle when it comes to reaching out. You might be wondering, MOZ, what do you mean, Maze, tutaingiaje kwa television? You guys give sermons every week. Kila wiki Maze unapatiana sermon. Hiyo sermon ni content bana. Hiyo sermon ni content Maze, mtu anaweza chukua hiyo story, someone can take your sermon, alafu they write a narrative out of it. And then guys can be able to act it out. And then we can tell our stories that are relevant with our culture. Because even some of those movies that we watch, they don't really relate to us. But we can tell our stories that are very relevant. Wasi wayangu wakizicheki wanacheki mazi, hii story mimi nakubaliana nao kwa sababu wasi wananipata. They see where I am. The solutions are so close to us. But the world has understood them. I pray that for us as a church, we'll be able to understand this. Now when MTV, there was a TV station called MTV. When MTV started a couple of, it was actually like in the 80s. Those guys, when they went on air, they only had one agenda. Do you know what their agenda was? We want to own the youth. Imagine. It was a TV show. In fact, MTV inamaanisha music television. All they wanted to do was to own the youth. This was in the 80s. The church in Europe or in the Western world was very vibrant. Vile MTV iliingia, just music videos playing, music videos playing, music videos playing. They created a new culture and a new way of living that till today continues affecting the world. Those guys almost literally owned the youth. When MTV started showing here in Kenya, oh my gosh, sisi tulikuwa ndani mbaya tena sana. Zile ngoma unasikia kwa radio mazi umeanza kucheki music videos hapo hivyo. Now you can start relating with that with those guys. They start showing you lifestyles and how to behave. Ukiwa na dem, hawezi shikana tu naye mkono mazi. Lazima mfanye kitu fulani. There's an agenda they're pushing, guys. They're advocating for something and it's being consumed every single day. Let's go on to the next slide. Tafadhali. So, if we're going to be effective, guys, I would highly suggest to us, I won't even tell you how to go ahead and do it. All I want you to remember is 360. You ask yourself, how do we have a disruptive ministry that's on air, that's online, and that's on ground? Kwa sababu hatuwezi yapokea hiyo space. Alafu, when you're doing that, my only suggestion is please make sure that you're culturally relevant. Masinza, thank you very much. I'm a new creation. Lazima niseme pole pole. You have to make sure, Mazi tafadhali, that you are culturally relevant. Because if you're not, utatupa mbao. Before I became a Christian, mimi nilikuwa nasema Mazi, mimi sikuwa na beef na God. Lakini sikuwa na understand watoi wake. Walikuwa naongea language nyingine niko Mazi, hamwezi ongea tu kama raia. Najua umeokoka lakini hauwezi dunga tu kama msemi yang. Mpaka niko nasema wanakatiana namna gani? Jana msee akasema Mazi walikuwa naambia na shalom. Ukigotea demu na mwambie, hey, shalom my sister. Anasema huyu msee ndiye the right person. You have to be culturally relevant, bana. You have to know the culture. You have to know where these young people are. What's exciting them. And let me tell you, these young guys, before, there was a culture that was called a modern generation. This one is postmodern. Modern are the guys walikuja kutucolonize hapa hivi wakisema mazee that they believed in humanity. Wakisema mazee that humanity can be able to change the world. They're the same guys who came to colonize us hapa hivi wakisema they're coming to bring something good to us, but all they wanted to do was to dominate our lives. But these postmodernists, this new generation, they will ask you questions. They will ask you why. Why do you believe in this Jesus Christ? I hear you when you tell me about Jesus Christ. Sawa, lakini najua pia kuna Islam is another religion we can consider. Africa traditional religion is another religion we can consider. In fact, still like yoga maze, Buddhism iko sawa kabisa. Because they're in a place where there's a word called they're syncretic. Basically, they're willing to embrace all these religions, including Christianity hapo hapo. That's this new generation, bana. When we're sitting over there and talking about sexuality, it's because they can do what they feel like. It's subjective. They can have multiple partners. I mean, you think about how crazy it is saizi maze kuwa. Hawa toi, watakuwa kienda chuo maze on a Sunday. Lakini badala waenda chuo straight, tunasoma kwa gazeti nini na happen? They had a sex orgy where? In a club somewhere. Ama kwa hao ya msee fulani. Watu wao wamejifungia. Na kuna madha fulani wamekubalisha wafanye vitu kama hizo. These young guys, they will push you, bana. They have no absolute truths. Because do you know what they're looking for? Authenticity. They just don't want you to tell them, usituambie mane, usituambie peke yake. We want to see it lived out. If you believe these words that you're saying, then it's easy for me to be able to follow. If I say the change that's happening in your life, then it's easier for me to believe it. But, unfortunately, when they look at us, we don't walk the talk. No, because we preach water and drink wine. I am positive that the reason why the gospel music industry is where it's at today is because we compromised so much that this thing that had taken the country by storm, unfortunately, the way we lived was very different from what we were saying. Hiyo kitu ni haunt hadi leo. Because I know how hard we worked. I know how many nights we went yani, tukikazana ambazo tukienda huduma bila do. Trying to make sure that we were establishing a new kind of movement yani, a new kind of outreach. And it was so vibrant, bana. It was so effective. But it takes you so long to build trust in one small act, kuibomoa. Please take me back to the slide again. Finally, same slide too. When Paul says words like, I've been crucified with Christ, it was evident in him. He was backing up his life. He was backing up with his words, with how he was living his life. If we're going to own this generation, guys, I pray, wakiangalia life yetu mazee, itaongea volumes. Let's go to the next slide, tafadhali, as I come to finish. So why do we do this? These young people that we have, this great population that we have of 910 million young people in Kenya, in Africa today, I think for me they fall in two categories. Infinite possibilities or imminent danger. Every issue that we see, every uprising that we see, wasi wakienda maandamano, vitu kama hizo kutumiwa vibaya, who do you think is being used? It's the young people. They are an imminent danger because they have time, but if we're not present in their lives, guys, tutawa abuse bana. They'll be abused by the wrong people. Psalm 127 verse 4 to 7 inasema hivi. Inasema, children born in one's youth are like arrows in the quiver of a warrior. And blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. Yani, I'm going to repeat this one more time. So you understand the significance. Please go back to the slide, Tafadhali. The children born in one's youth are like arrows in the quiver of a warrior. These young guys. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They will contend with the enemy at the gates, and the enemy will not prevail. When I look at this picture right here on this slide, these young men and the young ladies there, they're arrows in someone's quiver. The question is, whose quiver are they in? If they fall in the hands of the wrong person, the devil, they will be used to bring destruction, and we will never know peace. But then God calls us and he says, guys, go and reach out, bana. The harvest is plenty, the laborers are few. Angalia maze, the field is wide. Go and harvest. Because if these young people still are in the hands of Jesus Christ, they will be able to they will be able to contend with the enemy at the gate, and the enemy will not prevail. That's how Psalms 127 ends. That these young people will contend against the issues and the evils that we're facing in our generation. Yani, Africa is going to rise up and be the best continent that there is. Africa will be able to be that continent that's able to be the breadbasket of the world. But that won't happen if you and I are not intentional. Your responsibility goes just beyond evangelism. It's about a mind shift, a cultural change, Bana. And it's possible because Christ is with us. Congo is one of those countries that's absolutely gifted in our land. Like Congo, it says that they have wealth underneath, untapped, worth $24 trillion. Hiyo ni ile wanajua. That's one country called Congo. Do you know what the wealth for the US is? The wealthiest country in the world? $24 trillion. Congo does not know peace till today. One country in Africa has wealth that's untapped, what they know, worth $24 trillion, equivalent to the world's wealthiest nation. If that country had radical young men and women like you and I, intentionally doing life with them, I can only imagine the kind of leadership that would be there. I can only imagine if this was replicated all over our continent, what would happen? So can we dream together, guys? Mr. Kibaki mazeni kuwa ni kitu tu moja mkua kiongea hapa hivi. I'm going to finish with this. Last year, I had an opportunity to go to Thailand. And I was invited to go, and it was a family planning meeting. For those of you who may know or may not know, so I had a vasectomy. My wife and I decided mazee for our family planning kwa sababu tutaki kuongeza mazee watoto, siku hizi maisha ni expensive. This is what we're going to do for family planning. And so my story went out. I'd never planned for it to happen. But those guys were very surprised that there's actually a guy in Africa who has had something like that. And I'm sure there are many more who have done it. But anyway, they invited me over to Thailand. Now, when I was there, it was called the FP 2030, Family Planning 2030. Guys, it had people from all over the world. All nations of this earth were there in Thailand. Over 5,000 delegates. Do you know what they were talking about? That by the year 2030, they're going to make sure that family planning has been effected all over the world. That women will know their rights. Yani, they're so intentional, yani, guys. They have this meeting every 2 years. Tumefika wapi? Tumefika wapi? Challenges ziko wapi? Then they have people who are willing to put their money behind them. Unasikia, there's a family that's willing to put in $4 billion. One family. Hata usiongea kuhusu Bill na Melinda Gates. Na Bill na Melinda Gates ndio walilipia hiyo forum yote ifanyike. I believe God alinipeleka hapo hivyo ndio nione vile dunia mazee imechangamka. My question is, what are we doing? what are we believing and trusting God for? If the world can be so intentional to meet, to talk about family planning, why can't we be so intentional to meet and talk about something that has an everlasting consequence? Something that's just the heartbeat of God, yani. Kama God kuna kitu napenda mazini binadamu. Otherwise Christ angekam. So if you and I believe in this faith that we talk about, then guys, let's dream, bana. What's our goal? What's our call to action? What's our plan for 2030? What's the plan for your church, maze, for your neighborhood? What's the plan for us as a church, maze, in Africa? Tunatupambao. Please take me to the next slide as we wrap up. So guys, if the world can do this, why can't we dream together? Why can't we collaborate? All we do is tear each other apart, bana. You want to make sure that you build your own little kingdom. That's not what we were called about. It's about building God's kingdom, bana. You have something that I don't have, and I have something that you don't have. All of us, Mazi, if we can all collaborate and come together, guys, we will be unstoppable. And then finally, let's celebrate. Let's celebrate one another, bana. Msiseme Mazi, awasele walienda kufanya huduma wase so moja wakaokoka, nani atafollow up wase? Mbona useme Mazi utaenda na wase walikuwa naenda evangelism? Utafanya job yako ya discipleship hapo. It takes us back to collaboration. Guys, let's dream together. What can we do together? If resources were not an issue, I know saizi Maze, because of lack of resources, it can make us not think. Inatupatia mtaa mentality ile Juliani alikuwa anaongea kuhusu. But when God calls you, he didn't call you because he knew your bank account vile ilikuwa inakaa. He called you because he knows you can. And he just didn't call you, he chose you out of a multitude, bana. Amekuchagua wewe Maze ukuwe hapa hivi. So, what's going to make Advanced 2023 different from Advanced 2022? Is that we're going to put our work or our dreams to work. Let me say that. Let's dream together, guys. Let's spend some time. Let's go in groups of 10. My only question is, if you're to put a number to say, man, there's 910 million people in Africa. Let's even bring it down to Kenya. Tusiende basi mbali. Kenya has 10 million young people between the ages of 15 and 24. Put a number. What does that number look like? Resources are not an issue. Let's be practical, sindio? God is saying, whom shall I send? I pray Mazuta jitokeze useme Mazi, send me. Here I am. You don't qualify yourself. If resources were not an issue, what can we be able to do? If the world can meet and talk about family planning by 2030, in 2033, itakuwa ni 2,000 years tangu Jesus Christ arudi home, ende mbinguni. Ametuachia job hapa hivi. Tutafanya nini Mazi by 2033? What are we believing and trusting God for? Si bidii yako, what are we believing and trusting God for? Let's be bold. Let's think, don't be afraid. Let's do this thing together, sindio?